there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hello. Welcome to today's episode. It's coming out on Monday, the 24th of January. Great news in Ireland this weekend, where on Friday evening, our Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, announced that all the major restrictions, COVID restrictions, are being lifted. So, optimism sweeps back in. So wherever you're listening to this in the world, and it still blows my mind that there's people all over the world listening to this. So if you are, hello. Feel free to send me a note at any time if you have a question or something you'd like me to talk about, or even if, I don't know, one of the episodes has made a difference to you, send an email to me, shane@shanecraddock.com. Love to hear from you. But in terms of today's episode, it's the hidden limitations holding you back. And with the time that I'm recording this, last Monday, I held a webinar, kind of a one-off webinar that I'm calling Win Bigger in 2022, but it'll be a timeless piece, really, because I shared content in it that will apply to you at any time, really. But one of the things, actually, just in passing, like, it's not stuff, if you know me, it's certainly stuff that's new. I created especially for that particular webinar. So we talked about even different distinctions around, for example, busyness and being intentional, having a victim mindset and having a victor mindset, which some of that will surprise you because more people have a victim mindset than you might realize. Certainly, it might even be in a specific circumstance or situation of your life. And then we talked about the distinction between narrow success and also true success, and lots more besides. So I'll leave this link in the show notes for you. Depending on when you're listening to this, the price on the webinar will be going up from 37 to 47 euros. It's still really, in my mind anyway, I'm biased, but anyway, it's a fraction of what you're going to get in terms of return. Anyway, let's get on with things here. So, hidden limitations holding you back. So I think the impossible, it's kind of a buzzword, a bit like innovation, perhaps. As in, like, what does it actually mean? And so even if with impossible, you hear like, oh yeah, go for the impossible, or there's a slogan that's out there with a big brand called "Impossible is nothing." And we have a tendency in life, certainly in the Western world, to celebrate major achievements like a version of climbing Mount Everest. And they are the ones, or they are the people, or maybe even the organizations that tend to kind of get the headlines, or even the sporting people. And fair play, because they're always interesting stories. And they're great. But not everybody can relate to those kind of things. And very often people go, that's great, look at them. But in their minds, in their inner world, they're thinking, well, that's just them. That's not me. I can't do that. And I was chatting with a group of people recently that I do some work with. And I was sharing with them how, in my experience, limitations can kind of creep in silently into you, into your inner world, without realizing it. And that actually is more, there's more to be gained actually by even going in to look for these things. So I'm going to kick off this by saying that to create a better version of true success for you, which is a broader definition of success, it's not just about being successful with money or being successful with business or being successful in your field. It's a broader definition of what success is in terms of, I guess, at the core of it being meaningful and fulfilling. But to kind of get into that, I would encourage you to look for what I would call the sneaky limitations, because your mind at times, I think, can be very sneaky. The sneaky hidden limitations that have crept in while you left the doorway to your mind unguarded. And one of the things I'd said at the webinar last week as an expression was that, look, every day you have to be alert at the entrance of your mind. If you can imagine your mind is like a massive house or a massive room, or even, somebody said to me before, a nightclub. You have to be the bouncer of that nightclub. That's part of your job on the inner side. You got to be alert. Who's getting in and who's not. But then you also have to look at the back door So the entrance to your mind is grand. That's where everyone's coming in. But sometimes people sneak in the back door, or maybe people got in and they didn't get out. And, that can cause a problem. So just to give you an example, when I've written a book, some of you might know, called Inspire Me, and it did much better than I had expected, got to be honest. But that originally came out in 2011. So that's over 10 years ago at the moment. So, but at one point with that book, I hadn't realized it, but it was only when I heard somebody speaking about their journey in making a book and how there was lots of twists and turns and it was never a straight line and it wasn't that easy and they had kind of given up. And then they went, I think it was their father had said, look, you've given up. No, I haven't. No, you have. I can see it in you. And then they realized, oh, hold on. At the back of their mind, their little inner voice actually had given up. And that's what I would call a hidden limitation. And when I heard that, it struck a chord and I went, hang on a second here. I've actually given up because I wasn't getting the response from publishers at the time that I felt, well, obviously that I wanted to. And of course, if you've ever written a book, you'll always know that it's your baby and it's the best thing in the world. And, writers can be sensitive at times to rejection and, well, maybe it's just not going to work. And I had given up, but I hadn't fully consciously realized that at the back of my mind, there was a little voice, which really was coming from a limitation to say, it's not going to work. And once I caught that, I went, Grant, I'm going to make it happen. Now, it's a very simple thing, really, when you catch it like that. But actually, my experience is that there's all sorts of different types of hidden limitations, just like that, for the common everyday areas of our lives. And our job is to kind of go in and to root out the people that are still holding on into the room or still in the nightclub of our mind and say, right, you, out. Hi there. I thought I'd take the opportunity to let you know something free that might be of interest to you. I suppose on one level, if you're interested in leaning in a little bit more and doing some work with me, you can check out my website, and if you also get into my mailing list, you'll stay up to date with all the different things. There's a few new things coming out this year, apart from private client work, certainly group stuff and retreats and training. But one of the things that I suppose is a kind of a signature program that's probably hands down I think the best way to start with me, but also to get a really high impact on your work and your personal life, is my Mindshift program. Now, before you switch off or fast forward me, I've decided to give a free taster of some of the Mindshift material to people who might be interested, just to get a sense of what it is or what it isn't, because it's difficult to explain it, I think, in all in one go. But essentially, it's ultimately what I think are the essential skills for successful living and leading in the 21st century. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the show notes here. I'm releasing, literally the week that this podcast is coming out, something called Mindshift Lite. It's going to be a free 5-day email and video series. And I'm going to give some really valuable concepts and tools away within the 5-day series, which if anybody gets into, they'll get serious value out of. And even if you know me, it's probably a useful refresher on some of the key concepts that you might have heard me speak about. So anyway, that is there in the show notes. It's Mindshift Lite, and it'll be available until I think about the 4th of Feb or 7th of Feb. It's only for a limited period, about a week to 7 to 8 days. So if you're interested now, I would go to it straight away and just get in on it. So at least you have it there. Okay, back to the show. So, I mean, I'll give you another example of somebody that I was doing some mentoring with, somebody who was new to consulting a few years ago. And I mean, I've been through this journey myself. It's just that they were saying, like, they were very, very good and they give a lot of value to their clients. They kind of over-delivered on their promise consistently. And it was very obvious that, look, you're actually undercharging for what you're doing because the impact you're making here is quite significant. And you can justify a higher fee. And they could see that logically, but they couldn't do it at the time. And I said, well, why? I mean, let's go into the inner side and explore what are you saying to yourself. And ultimately, there was a limiting factor where there was a voice at the back of their mind saying, I can't do that because I'm not worth it. And so once we dealt with that, then they were able to increase their fees. Another one I'm going to throw at you is somebody I was dealing with, I think last year, an entrepreneur with a scaling business. And, you know, depending on the rate at which you're scaling, you will hit inner limitations at different various points mental limitations. So it's very important for the CEO to scale their mind actually as you're scaling. Otherwise, without them realizing that the CEO can actually sabotage the growth of the business. So you got to get the CEO's mind right first, exterminate the limitations, and then help the CEO to exterminate the limitations in the lieutenants so that they can scale mentally as well. Very few people ever really talk about that, but I've seen it too many times. Anyway, I'm talking to the client. He's trying to essentially, in his words, I think, remove any sort of mind junk or mind spam or mental viruses to allow him to scale. But as we're going through our conversations over a series of months, he flags that he's managed to get his kind of unknown business into a situation where he's been listed down with the last three in a tender process for a pretty significant contract. That's, let's just say it's a big international opportunity. And the other two people in the tender process are well-known, established performers and businesses in his field. He's kind of the upstart unknown, but he managed to get, I think, from a short list of maybe 12 down to 3. So now he's into the final lap. And he says to me, just throw away comment, yeah, well, look, I'm going to do the pitch, but look, it's just good to be there, and we get some experience from it, and da-da-da. So can you believe I just said da-da-da on a podcast? But anyway, we're not going to remove that. So we're there, and I'm saying to him, hang on a second here. Let's just pause. I want to go and explore. I didn't say it exactly like this to him, but I said, let's go and explore some of the limitations here, possible limitations. What are you saying to yourself? The way I'm hearing this is that you are not going for this. You've assumed somewhere at the back of your mind, there's a little voice saying, we're not going to get this because we're not big enough or we're not good enough. And that struck a chord because it was true. And so then, okay, first of all, now we shine a light on that, which is, you could say, shine the light of awareness on what's going on inside me. And let's see, can we challenge it? Because whatever you're saying to yourself inside, for all the simple areas that are right in front of you right now today, you're saying something about different things. Now, I'm talking about business here, but I'm going to broaden it out to other areas in a moment. Anyway, with that situation, very simple thing that's simple when you hear it, but I suppose it was my way to try and help him get over it. Maybe you could apply this to your business or life or something you're in. I said, look, come up with 10 reasons why the client that you're pitching to would be absolutely crazy not to go with you. Not to go with you. Write down 10 reasons. And as they said to me, as they worked through that over the next few days, that provided what's called a mind shift, where they just went over a line and went, oh my God, I was holding myself back. My inner voice had assumed I wasn't going to get it. It was a limiting factor. And now I've worked through logically 10 reasons why they'd be crazy not to go with me. And so he completely rewrote the pitch deck, went in, nailed the presentation, and got the contract. Got the contract. And in his words, it was a mind shift moment. We realized, oh, right. And that's an example to me of the inner edge playing out in reality, and also the inner edge being extremely valuable in a commercial sense. So I think it's a very practical one. Now, the same thing I think would apply, and this is where I think the low hanging fruit, the opportunities are in your life, is that, yeah, we can be all excited about going for these, they call it in business, a big, hairy, audacious goal, big, massive, the impossible. And that's to be encouraged. But what about the ordinary stuff in your life? What about the ordinary stuff in your business? So, for example, your relationship. Maybe you're saying something at the back of your mind, which is, yeah, I'm just going to accept second best or an average relationship. I'm just going to accept in my health that it is the way it is. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to gain weight. I'm never going to get into shape. Whatever it is, I'm just going to accept the pain that I'm in. Even with my kids, what are you looking at there? What's your inner voice saying to you? So I would encourage you to kind of go through all the major areas of your life, your health, your relationships, your closest relationships, family relationships, and just say, well, what am I saying to myself there? And just like the examples I've given you, to examine those and say, well, hang on. Do I have to accept that limitation? So what are the things you've accepted? Look for the impossible stuff, the opportunities in the stuff that's right around you right now. Think about the areas that perhaps the important stuff in your life and say, well, what am I saying to myself? And is it supporting the highest potential in your life? Could there be a project in your work that maybe at the back of your mind, you're just thinking, it's just not going to happen? Maybe you could do that top 10 reasons exercise that I gave you, because you could apply to lots of different things. For example, write down top 10 reasons why I deserve to have a very close, loving relationship. Top 10 reasons why I deserve to be in great health, or why I deserve to get a contract, or why I deserve to kind of be listed in a competition, or why I deserve to publish a book, or, let's not hold ourselves back. It's bad enough. Other people might say whatever. Really what matters is what's going on inside you. So I would encourage us all regularly to do a little inner sweep of your inner world to make sure that no sneaky limitations have come in. And in a way, I'd almost kind of say then, think small first. And what I mean by that is look at the ordinary areas of your life. And then when you identify perhaps some little sneaky thoughts, some sneaky limitations, challenge them. And then go big with the thinking. Say, okay, just like my client going for the impossible in terms of winning that contract. Go big. So think small first and then go big with that area. And that is, I think, an area that's very rarely discussed. But I would encourage you to dig in and go for it, because I've just seen magic happen. And if you do go for it and something happens that you like, let me know. I'm always keen to hear what you think and what actually really happens, because that's ultimately the real magic. Anyway, thanks for being with me. Bye-bye.